Ben does not know where his brothers are, but he does not miss them so much. It is a slow day in the donut shop, and though he is loath to admit out loud, on slow days they can be bothersome. They get in his way. Ben is the steadfast brother, the consistent one. He is always there with a smile for any customers or friends, and would never admit that he does not, on occasion, yearn for the solitude of life's unknowns. He feels consumed by the donut shop, his father's shop, his father's shop. He cannot recall a time before the donut shop. He cannot recall a different second home or vacations to other places. He recalls bonfires on the rocky beaches. He recalls tents. He recalls homemade haunted houses sponsored by the Greater Surf City Community Coalition, GSC3 for short. Ben cannot remember a time either when he hated the donut shop, though he can't imagine that there's not at least a short period of time where he must have. The donut shop is an omnipresent place, and therefore could either be loved or hated, or not at all. Though that is not to say that it is not special. Its walls were always painted impression before the walls at home, its floor often serviced and buffed long before those at home as well. And if there were not limits and drama possible, he'd have Truist at the donut shop with him. Here, with him. Ben aches a little today. It is an absent-minded ache, and he blames age and does not think it important, but it is more important than he knows. Listener, what Ben Black is describing in the back of his own mind, what he is undergoing, if you will, is the ominous feeling before something goes wrong. It is not something that allows a change to pinpoint what itself will be wrong, but it is a useful tool in knowing that something is certainly incorrect. Mortals of Earth cultivated this particular feeling over time, now sometimes as an ache, sometimes as a palpitation, sometimes as a shiver. This is an almost organic mortal response to trouble, and the trouble makes. After the creation of fire is when it first appeared, but before the rising of the waters of the first flood. Now, at first, Ben just thinks that it is the hook that has problems. Across the kitchen, in some spaces, there are pegboard-style hooks for some less used but still necessary items. One of these items is a special and somewhat ancient cast iron pan. Well seasoned with age and with use, it is one of the first pans that was used in the space. It is a surviving relic of a time gone by, whose hands were touched by Ben's father, and Ben's father's father before him, and so on and so forth. Almost every member of the current and recently deceased Black family has touched this cast iron pan. When it crashes down onto the workspace near Ben, Ben just takes it by its heavy handle and puts it back. He says to himself. He examines the pignail that was holding the pan securely for just a moment. It is still in its omnipresent place, and it is unbent, it is unsheared. It exists, almost willful and proud. So he replaces that cast iron pan, and he goes back to work. Moments later, his hand shakes. The pan's body 3 inches from its index fingernail. The way it fell only saved his hand thanks to a Longwood-style pen handle. Ben steps away gingerly from his workspace, hesitantly, like prey looking at a predator ready to strike. He shakes his head wearily, coming back to himself. What was that? Wait. Stop. Listeners. Listeners, listen. Do you hear? I thought I heard. Listeners, can you hear that? Do you hear that? It sounds like rain. Of course, rain is not something we are used to in the cosmic. Perhaps we are too focused on the Black family today. Let us take a moment. Let us listen between raindrops. Listen for the crickets between the drops, and then the silence between the chirp of the crickets. Drop, a cricket's chirp, and then silence. The silence that calls to us. A silence that calls us to contemplation, rest, hope, the path of the cosmos. We rejoin Mace and Edgar in the house, continuing to converse, but they are no longer in the bathroom. There are little awnings outside some of the rooms in the Black family ancestral manor home. On a clear night, tall enough, you can see all around the inky blackness of Surf City, little dots of light coming from the homes or rare late night businesses. And it is a warm enough night to be out on these awnings. They are trustworthy to bear weight, which all three of the siblings have found out. And these awnings are just slanted enough as to mimic the pleasantly idyllic child practice of afternoon hill sitting, cloud watching, looking up, as is the heart royally proclaimed to do. And especially night, this royal proclamation seems a good enough distraction, seems good enough for honesty. Mace watches without judgment as Edgar expertly makes a cigarette and then takes one when politely offered. When do you start smoking? Edgar asks curiously. I like having something to do with my mouth, Mace says glibly. Also, people don't tend to bother you on street corners if they think you're on a smoke break. Or if you're built like a brick crud upper, like I was, Edgar says, and the last word falters. Sorry. It's okay, you get used to it. It's so weird. I never thought my body would betray me, or if it did, I would at least have some sort of glory days to look back on, you know? I know you understand. Glory days. I'd had some of those, Maeve says. Hey, Edgar says in a friendly tone. You managed it. Not forever, but you did. I'm never gonna see the world like you did. That counts for something. Even if you're trapped now, you weren't trapped always. And that's something. The underside of a bridge. He snorts in response. You know what's out there, Edgar? Nothing. More of this. Oh, sometimes mountains instead of water. Sometimes vast rows of corn, but it's all the same. All the same places with different faces looking at you strangely. Mongrel. You felt like a mongrel? May seems to fold in on themselves, shrugging at the thought. They can't bear to look at Edgar for a moment. Doing what you have to survive. Newspaper wrapped around like a coat. And yeah, you could have come home, but I understand why you didn't. I would have, but Mace sings for a long moment. It's kind of weird. Listeners, it still sounds like rain. It sounds like rain even getting closer, but also moving farther away. The rain is here, but we do not see it, only hear it. I am not old enough to remember what it means to just hear rain. Are you old enough, listener? Do you remember what it means to hear rain? I told you about rain on the last episode. I promised Atsume a lengthy discussion about rain, or at least rain in memory. Is rain better in memory or is it better in person? What do you think? What does your charge think? Is rain alive? Is it a hassle? Is it only good for love stories and dark moods and dark stories and love moods? What is rain? What does it do for us? Rain. Contemplate. Contemplate and listen. We never even really got along. Even as kids, Edgar grunts, acknowledging an unspoken thing he knows to be true. No, but nobody expected us to, Mace says, non-controversial and non-committal in their agreement. I do wonder if we all did exactly what we were supposed to, ended up as who we're supposed to be. What do you mean? Mace takes a delicate drag of the cigarette. I mean, the family always had plans for us, and it always felt like no matter where I went, I could never really escape. It wasn't just the pills. What happened to you, Mace? What do you mean? I mean, you were never that carefree, BS sort of kid the last couple of years before you ran off, even with the pills. I mean, it wasn't just Mom's death, was it? I know you were close, but Mace is silent with Edgar's words and doesn't help finish the thought. Edgar puzzles for a moment and then grimaces. When I make these, I usually add something to them, he confesses. Like a hallucinogen or something? E? Mace asks curiously. I'd try that if that's what you're offering. No, no, it's. I usually. We are. Oh, shoot. Don't judge me. Wait, I wouldn't judge you, but is this withdrawal then? Is that what the ice water was really all about? Mace asks, reaching out to touch Edgar's forearm, and Edgar flinches for a moment. He doesn't have the energy to much more than react in the flinch, but he's clearly hurting. How long? Mace asks. Slack. The dealer's been MIA for a while now, and nobody else is dealing at all. How long? Since before you left. After the injury. I used to cut it with Tylenol because I didn't want to get sleepy on the Dilaudid chip. Still got addicted to something, though. Edgar says with some black humor, and there's almost a perverse, giddy gallows feel to the sentiment. The paintings talk to me. The bills are supposed to stop it, but they don't, Mace admits. Oh, shoot. Yeah, and you know who talks the most? Mom. Oh, must be a real boner killer. Mace gives a nod. Among other things. Yeah. What what does what is Mom saying to you? And Mace lets out a sigh. Just stupid cryptic bullshit. Lots of something is coming, pay yourself, do something about it, but like never anything concrete. She just talks sometimes, demands things from a painting. Oh, it sucks. Don't think I'm crazy? Look, I used to cut my ciggies with stuffed milk from vampires. If you're crazy, I ain't far behind. I'm a guy who misses his dealer he used to screw around with. Like, Rage wasn't a great guy, but he's good to me. And that was nice. Still think about him sometimes. So you're bi? Nace asks. Edgar makes a face as he thinks, wondering if he wants a label, if it's worth the hassle. Technically, Edgar believes he is bi, having slept with both men and women. But did he enjoy it with both? Does he dream about both? He wonders if that's a prerequisite and lets smoke curl around him in response for a long moment. Trouble would like to remind us today that rain creates steam. Steam. Steam is progress. The hiss of steam. The bend of the world. The bend of the S in the word steam. That is progress. That is newness and a new creation rolling forth. Are you stuck in your habits? Is your charge stuck in theirs? Consider steam. Consider how it rises, how a mortal bends to it. It is heat, and yet it is cold, and yet it is wet. It is damp fire. The mortals created damp fire, and how could any of you conceive of it? Why do you watch the mortals when they cannot be contained? Why do you ask of them things you cannot do yourself? You tell them to hope, to love, to listen for the silence in between crickets. They created steam. They have no time for silence. Steam. From kettles to trains to entertainment films. Steam. It is better than you, and you know it. Julie sees him first in the mirror of a department store window, just out of the corner of her eye, as though he is one of those eye worms. At first, she thinks it is the glint off of a glossy red dresser in a storefront window. They're always trying to upscale or antique Surf City. Unlike other towns, though, it doesn't ever seem quite to take, save for the Dragon's Wing, that is. And even then, there's something about the Dragon Wing pub and eatery. And Julie has been trying to understand it. She has applied to work there. She has tested a drink both in and out of the pub, once by science and once by ingestion. She has monitored the patrons and staff, tried to take note of all who enter and exit. To her grand horror, there have been no anomalies, which tells her a great deal more than she might think. No, in that storefront window, she thinks just a red dresser. Then his smile appears as she brushes her teeth. It is in the reflection of a pebble on the beach next, and then finally on a dinner plate at a diner near a truck stop near enough to the edge of town. She yearns to keep going then, but the tug, and there is a tug, it keeps her in Surf City. The longer she's away, the more it pains and tears psychically, like a panic attack, like breathing in false air and knowing there is nothing to be done but suffocate if you do not rectify the situation. Surf City, in spite of her best efforts, is deep inside her, clawing its way, clawing through, clawing to the surface. To be elsewhere seems like a way just to infect them with Surf City, and she is unkind, but she is not cruel. Julie the Archer only addresses him on the third sighting. What do you want? Rage's face merely looks at her, his grin menacing and wide, too wide now for his face. His eyes are bloodshot, or rather just filled with blood. Black blood crusting alongside the bottom of the eye well, seemingly dripping down black ichor to the edges of his upper lip. There is a stripe of hair that was not there that she can recall, as though while shaving his head he missed it but didn't go back to finish the work. It is rage. But why? As far as her studies, that is not merely a side effect of this or any ritual Julie knows. It simply is. But what does it mean? And will rage ever speak back? Dear listeners, too, you should note that in Julie's file, she is very conscientious about her ritual work, preferring no loose ends. For mortal ritualdom, she is very clean in this sense. Rage only smiles in the corner of her eyes, only in the reflection that she sees. If it is indeed rage. And if it is rage, what does that mean? What of falling or flying frying pans? Does the donut shop loathe its masters? Has it risen up? And what will become of the two siblings who now share a forged bond of honesty? And what of those lilac and lemon curd donuts that took Mace away? Tune in to the next episode of Surf City's Donuts to find out. Surf City is an audio work of John McDonald and John McDonald Productions. It is meant for entertainment purposes only and is not meant to advise anyone on lifestyle, health, or spiritual philosophical issues of there or any time. All opinions expressed are held by the characters and in some cases the creator of Surf City and Surf City Donuts, John McDonald.